Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's show. And today, Kerin, we're going to talk about types of tenants and what's that best target market for your property, or that target audience for your property, depending on what type of property it is and where it's located and what kind of demographics fits in with that. So I think really, like I say, it depends on the kind of rental property that you own. There could be multiple types of tenants who'd make a good fit for each individual property, but which one is the best fit for you as the landlord? So that's a really important thing as well. So there's a kind of balance in that there. So we're going to run through things today, see which properties fit best with which tenants. And that could be an array of things that will influence it, such as, working from home, kind of changing demographics, as I said. The increase in rents have all affected the rental market across the country and changing the way homes are used and who suits them the most. We've seen a lot of that, Kerin, on the other side of the pandemic and lockdown, how things changed drastically because people were looking for more outside space and that extra. No one could be bothered with the box room beforehand, and then everybody kind of wanted it to have as their home office.
Yeah, we've gone from pitching these single bedrooms to look at your home office. So it's changed the way that obviously people live and the way that people look at their properties.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, when we think about this, whether you've owned your rental property for a while or whether you're looking at something as a new buy-to-let investment, it's really essential to know what types of tenants offer the best returns for your investment and what will actually attract them to that property, whether it's an extra room for an office, whether it's outside space, whether it's, a big garden for the family and the family pets, and, all these different things. So to help you identify the right market, we've put this together and we're going to run through it today. And it's kind of like a handy guide to explore the different types of tenants. We're going to cover, singles and couples. Singles and couples kind of fit in the same category. Professionals who share and things possibly sometimes as well. Family tenants and that family setup. And then we've also got HMOs, which is house of multiple occupation. And then we're going to look at student rentals as well. Here in Fife, we have, predominantly it's in St Andrews, but it is elsewhere. But obviously across the country and into things like Edinburgh and Glasgow things, student accommodation is quite a big thing. So we're going to cover that as well. And then with these different tenants, finding that right match, it profoundly impacts your management efforts, your cash flow on your investment, and your property's longevity as an investment as well. If you've got the right tenants and the right property, you will see a much longer life of your investment as a rental property. So let's look at the best ways for your property and the factors that pull them all together. And we're going to kick off with singles and couples, Kerin. So why do you not take us through that to start with?
Yeah, so renting to singles and couples is most often about comfort, convenience, and accessibility. Mm-hmm. So from the design of the interior to the proximity of transport, shops, entertainment. Obviously, you're looking for that home and life balance there as well. Different sense of priorities sometimes when it comes to this demographic of tenant.
Yeah.
So target homes are usually studios or 1 or 2 bedroom apartments or small houses that are easily maintained with stylish, modern decor and finishings.
Yeah, you tend to find, not always, single people could be older and more mature people, but you tend to find a lot of the time it's younger single people or, young couples who have come together. It's probably their first home and maybe still, working and things and maybe not quite at the start of family stage or whatever. And these kind of properties, like you say, the 1 and 2 bedroom flats and apartments and smaller houses really do fit that niche.
Yeah, especially for, like you say, the first time when you're coming on the market, trying to get something that's a bit more affordable than obviously like your more family-sized houses. It's a good starting point for people.
Yeah.
And on that topic, studios tend to be most ideal for people that are living alone, while dual income earning couples use their extra spending power for more space and separate bedroom. So obviously more likely to have that either 1 or 2 bedroom property there. Studios tend to be fine for somebody that's just on their own. Can be a little bit close proximity though if you are in a couple staying in a studio. Depends how big it is, I guess. But yeah, it's a little bit close for comfort sometimes. 2-bedroom properties with a single and second bedroom can appeal to people working from home, as we've already touched on. Single bedroom, perfect for a home office, or even just those thinking about starting a family and need a nursery in the future. If you've not got, if it's just a smaller second room as well, it can be obviously ideal for that. Just maybe if it's something you're thinking about, you've got the space there for it.
Yeah, I think these like the in areas like the ex-local authorities, kind of 2-bedroom, semi-detached, terrace houses and things, they're perfect starters for, young couples and things to start off. And then, once they go down that route and start to think, oh, like we're going to start a family, they've got that extra room to start off, and they're just the perfect setup.
Yeah. And generally speaking as well, singles and couples look for rent in locations that are obviously convenient for local transport and have an active social life as well. So you're going to want those busier locations that have got a bit more going to them, as opposed to maybe your families or even like retired couples. They might be quite happy just having that peaceful, quiet life, maybe a bit more rural, whereas obviously if you're in the earlier stages, you might want that more active social life aspect to it. So thinking about location, where your property is, as well as the size of it, will obviously key in your demographic there.
Yeah, you're definitely going to want like, some sort of, I don't know, restaurant, bar, nice coffee shops, things close by, and maybe some shops and things that aren't too far, and possibly walk-in or a short drive from a property.
And the benefit of obviously going for this demographic, with just 1 or 2 people staying in the property, wear and tear can be a lot lighter. However, the smaller homes can see tenants move sooner if better opportunity arise, or if life progresses and they do maybe need that bigger property. So although you're looking at less wear and tear on it, you can also be looking at a higher turnover, which in turn can end up causing just as much as the same as family life would. So it's all things to consider.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think, like we're saying, if it's that type of tenant who's a young couple and then start to think about family and things, it's not going to suit them for a very, very long period of time. It's obviously maybe like a medium-term let, possibly. And then they would obviously look for something that falls into the kind of family home bracket, which is I'm going to go into like family tenants now. And obviously we're going to have a lot more wear and tear when you've got a family in place and young kids, as opposed to a single or a couple. And whatever their age, most houses with 3 or more bedrooms are generally, they're built for families, obviously in mind, which makes family tenants one of the most stable and long-term tenant profiles. That family unit, they're the ones that you're going to have the longest term tenancies with. Parents really value security and space, community, these popular residential areas. And one of their biggest qualifying factors is proximity to local schools, good schools, and finding homes with the catchment areas is very important. I know that's the case here in Fife, and indeed it's like that across the entire country. If you've got good residential family areas with, these 3, possibly 4-bedroom houses in close proximity to good schools, then you're going to have a family unit who potentially will be there for a long time. And they also look for other things that they look for to be near to them as other family. If they've got family close by, or they look to either be close to friends or build friendships with people in these areas, and join groups and have that kind of community where children and parents can both integrate into these kind of areas. So you really need to think, right, this is a good residential area with a lot of pros in terms of schools and clubs and things they could join. Is there a football field nearby? Is there community centre that does like dancing classes, or things that, thinking of these kind of things, because that's what parents are going to think about. I mean, I'm sure you get that quite a lot, Kerin, when you're doing viewings with people, where you point out these kind of things close by, because that's what these kinds of people are going to be looking for.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, knowing who your viewers are in the first place is key to obviously making the property as appealing to them as possible. Like you say, if you're going for that family, you are going to be pointing out if there's a park around the corner, or if there's a shop just down the road, if they've got little ones and they maybe just need to nip out to the shop and get something. They're not having to go far or take them out the house for long. You can just nip down the road. So it's definitely pointing out these key things for somebody to make it appealing for them. And on the same side as obviously families looking for these areas, I tend to find as well, when we've got these heavily family orientated areas for it. It does also attract, for example, like older couples that are going into retirement now and they're looking to be closer to the families. So even though you're in these family areas, you might still be attracting like the grandparents, for example, that are going to be wanting to be closer to the family now that they're at that stage of life. So even though you're in the family areas, you might be getting, it's a key aspect for getting the older generation as well, if they're wanting to be close by to sons, daughters, grandkids, things like that.
Yeah, I think it's important, obviously, although we are categorising certain properties and certain tenant profiles, it's not one size fits all. Just because it's a one-bedroom property doesn't mean it's going to be, a couple. It could be just a single person or a studio. And just because it's a two-bedroom or three-bedroom house, it might be an older couple and they've got the affordability and it's where they want to be. And, but generally, these are the kinds of properties that fit these kind of profiles. But I mean, it's always open to interpretation depending on the individual that's applying. And then it depends on why they want that type of property and do they have the affordability and things. So
yeah, definitely have to see what comes up at the time.
Yeah, I mean, we get a vast array of different, people searching for properties for different reasons and different, setups. Whether it's couples and singles and families, and there's a whole array of things and where they're coming from and why they're wanting to stay there and how long they want to stay there and things. So you do really do it on an individual basis, but I think the general rule of thumb is family areas. 3-4 bedroom houses for family units, and then like you said about the 1 and 2 bedroom houses for singles and couples and things as well.
And I mean, you even get people that are on their own, and we've got single tenants that are in like 3-bedroom properties, and it's the landlords do ask, they're like, why do they need a property that size? And ultimately it's because, one, they can afford it, and two, why wouldn't you have the space if you can? So I mean it's quite fair.
But then we do find that they'll have their own room, they have a spare room, and then they work from home.
Yeah.
And that's generally how that works. But one of the other things about like the family home as well, and I think a really important part, and I mentioned it at the beginning, and not just because of the pandemic and things, just because outside space and a garden space is so essential for a family unit, especially those with a bit of a lawn space, for children to play. Families generally come with a cat or a dog, and the family pet, and also easy parking as well. That's not on the street and then not located on a street that's really got high traffic coming past, a low traffic area, which is generally in these kind of residential type areas.
Yeah, off-street parking is definitely a good selling point. A lot of people appreciate a drive, especially, I mean, not even if you've got kids, but even just coming in with your shopping, for example, like you don't want to have to be lugging them up all these stairs. So if you do have the option of off-street parking, it is definitely beneficial. Or even if you have a garden that maybe you've got a good sized front garden that you could adapt and have a driveway in it, it definitely will benefit your property having the off-street parking.
Yeah, I always say to landlords and things, and when I'm first doing like an appraisal and walking around properties, and you'll do the same as well, Kerin, it's like, if it's got parking, if it's got good storage, and I'm like, these are all things like that are right up there in the top of people's list of things to look for when they're searching. So, when you've got them, it's like it's a kind of tick box, and that's generally for most people that are looking, but especially for the family unit, parking, storage, garden, and things like that. So definitely.
Storage is always something that I would point out when I'm doing a viewing.
Yeah, definitely. And if you think that your rental property might be suitable for tenants, and you want to take a look at our, we could talk about this forever. We've done a whole show about renting to families and a whole blog, and I've put the link in the attached, so you could click through on that, you could watch that, you could listen to the podcast, and you could also read the blog on that one as well. And that's specifically designed just for renting to families alone, because there's quite a lot in there and a lot of good tips. So as I say, because we're going to move on to a different profile now, but the family one's a really important one. As I say, it's quite it's a really good one for investors, as it's got quite a long length of tenancy associated with family units. So that's one to really think about if you're building a buy-to-let portfolio. So click through it and do that. You're going to move now on, Kerin, to do professionals and sharers and things that share, like working professionals and possibly people that share property as well.
Yes, so renting to professional sharers generally produces more income than renting to families, because each person is living in your property as a working adult. However, there are some areas that need to be considered if this is the route that you would like to go down. So professional sharers tend to look for homes where all the bedrooms are doubles. A single room tend to have higher turnover because they simply don't feel like a grown up. And I mean, as an adult, especially if you're wanting a double bed, you need the space. So having those 2 double rooms at least will be key if you're looking for sharers in your property.
We've got a few sharers. Just to clarify, when we're talking about sharers, we're not talking about HMOs, because I'm going to go on to talk about that. Sharers are, because obviously you can still have 2 separate people on the one tenancy agreement sharing a property with a room each, and we do get that quite a lot, without having to have a HMO license and things, obviously. So
yeah, and obviously when it comes to the sharers, it's obviously you have your typical private residential tenancy, because it's usually just the 2 of them that are on it, which is absolutely fine. The only thing is that if you do have changeovers with it, you could have somebody that wants to stay and somebody that wants to move out. So keeping your paperwork up to date with that, and making sure that if you do have somebody that they would like to swap over, for example, and have somebody new come in, you're referencing the new person. You're keeping your lease up to date. You're keeping your deposit scheme up to date, and making sure that everything's all done. So although sharers can be good, because as we say, 2 adults working 2 incomes, usually affordability is quite good there, and it tends to be there's no children, because obviously they are. So it's not like they have dependents that they're having to pay for, but you have to make sure you keep your paperwork up to date with who's staying in the property if there's any changeovers.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And again, with a house full of adults using the kitchen and bathroom facilities, there needs to be plenty of cupboard space to house all their groceries and personal products as well. So again, bathrooms, kitchens, we all use them.
Storage.
Yeah, we all need the storage space in it. So house sharers are generally for younger people, and busy tenants who appreciate things like low maintenance gardens, good local social scene, and effective transport connections. So again, kind of coming back to that younger people in their earlier demographics there, that you are going to appreciate the more easier aspect on life.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. As I say again, it's not like one size fits all. I think we've got one that's a few. They're quite mature students, but there's 2 of them and they share. It's not an HMO, but they share and they've got a room each and whatever. But yeah, and they're a bit older in terms of age as opposed to young. But I mean, like I say, it's not always one size fits all.
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple of retired sharers as well, and again, the 2 of them just share the house to each other, and they go out and just, again, that attracted them for the social aspect of it. And again, even though they're older, they still fully appreciate the location for it because it meets their social needs, and they were quite happy just to share it with the 2 of them. So yeah. 2 friends in there.
I think I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, sharers can, well, as we know, as we have, they totally range in age as well. So you can have people like from their 20s and up until their 60s. Like, it just depends what stage people are at in their life. But generally, sharers, you do have obviously that dual aspect income for it, which can be quite good for the affordability side. But again, you have to watch with the demographic there as well, just because as to how they get on. I would advise doing inspections. Well, always advise doing inspections regardless of who you have in your property. But if you are checking it for sharers, because you might get somebody that doesn't want to do the dishes, for example, and then it gets to a point where the other person doesn't want to do the dishes because they've not been done, and then the house can just start getting a wee bit messy and snowballing. So making sure that you're checking that they are working well as sharers.
Yeah.
And looking after the place.
Good. And then I think as well with the sharers one, do you know that, like, you could talk quite a lot about each of these ones. Like we said, the family one's quite a good one, but then the sharers one as well, we've done a blog separately on renting to sharers as well. So I stuck the link for that in the blog attached as well. And again, you could watch the show, you could listen to the podcast, or just read through it and get the tips. So that's quite a good one. So renting to families and renting to sharers is linked in the blog attached, and feel free to click through on them individually, because you might have a property that's suitable for families. You might have one that you think is suitable for sharers. So there's a lot more information there to click through on. As we say, sharers, we're not referring to an HMO. So HMOs, as I say, house of multiple occupation. Now, HMOs are a strategy for maximising your rental income by renting each individual room on to each separate person on a separate tenancy. This is where in Scotland it does become a little bit tricky, because we have the private residential tenancy now. And well, we have done since 2017. But I remember when it first comes through, and we don't do HMOs, but a very well-known agent in St Andrews does them, and I remember speaking to them, and I will not say the words. It was a challenge. I was going to say nightmare, but I don't like saying nightmare. They said it was such a nightmare, but I mean, it was such a challenge for them, because when you've got this building with, say, possibly 5, 6 rooms, you've got 6 individual people, and they're all on their own individual PRT, private residential tenancy, it can become a bit tricky, especially with the fact that the PRT is generally designed really for the longer term residential lets as opposed to student lets, and it didn't really accommodate doing HMOs, and it makes their job a lot more difficult, which makes me even more glad that we don't do HMOs.
Yeah, it's a bit of a headache.
However, HMOs, if done properly and set up right, the extra earnings can come in quite well and help you that long way extra to, you know, managing the property, doing upgrades, and making a good return. And HMOs, I mean, different local authorities have different licensing rules, so wherever you are in the country, always check that. From the number of occupants that you could classify as an HMO, to possibly the limiting number of HMOs in certain streets, or, you know, imposing total bans. I mean, each local authority is different. We had a lot of changes in recent years in the St Andrews area where we are in Fife. Do you know, they put a hold on HMO licenses being issued because of the amount in the area and things, and then there's different rules around how many can go in each, as I say, in each property. Here in Fife, different in Edinburgh, and then across in Glasgow. So always check whether you're up here in Scotland or down in England. It's always good to know exactly what is classified as an HMO and what's the rules surrounding that. But as I say, if done right, it can be quite lucrative. The model, though, of a HMO generally has that higher turnover, and it has that higher turnover, I mean, by design. It's designed for individuals, typically students, but not always, but I mean, more often than not, it's students, which is a seasonal thing. Well, obviously a term thing, as you know what I mean. So obviously they'll come and go as the terms finishes and starts, and it does require landlords to manage the shared areas. So if there's shared stairways, if there's outside space, there's cleaning and turnaround for kitchens and bathrooms and hallways, and maintaining outdoor space, as I say, like gardens, and then even communal doorways, and you've got a lot extra included in that in terms of fire safety. There's a lot extra on there in terms of fire doors and fire extinguishers, and there is multiple areas of legal compliance when it comes to an HMO, and fire safety, as I say, is right up there. You have minimum room size standards as well, and the ratio of bathrooms to number of occupants as well. If you've got so many rooms on different floors, you're going to have a bathroom on each floor, possibly. If you've got 3 rooms and 3 rooms, it'll have to have a bathroom and a bathroom. I mean, that's just an example. Don't quote me on that. But that's the general kind of setup you need to think about. And for sheer practicality as well, landlords usually take responsibility for the council tax and the utility bills, and offering that all-inclusive service. You don't need to do that, but generally it probably works better to do that. You're going to be able to command a bit of a higher rent per room, so your overall income for the building is going to be quite lucrative, as I say. So it just makes it easier to tie up in a bow and do it as a one package, right? That's your room rent, and you take care of the council tax and utility bills and everything for the building. That kind of wraps it up quite easily and makes it a lot more straightforward. It could get very messy with utility bills and things all like separated up, especially if you've got like, I keep thinking back to one that I've actually put it on the market for sale up in St Andrews. It was formerly an HMO. We done a long-term residential on it, and now it's on the market for sale. And is it 5 bedrooms on the 3 floors, or is it 6 bedrooms? Is it 1, 2, 3, 4? I think it's 5. There's 3 on the first floor, 2 on the top, and it's got 2 kitchens, it's got 2 bathrooms, and it's set up that way. And that's what I keep going back to, and you visualize things in your brain. But generally that's how HMOs work. As I say, there's quite a lot involved in HMOs, and you know, if you're thinking about turning a property into an HMO, or you currently have one and maybe you're having issues, again, we did do a whole show on HMOs as well, which would be really good for you to click through and have a look at. And it's a single let or HMO, and it's our blog, which is linked again in this one attached. And you can watch the video, listen to the podcast, or just read through that for some tips. HMOs, as I say, is not something we do as a company ourselves, but up here in Scotland, I've spoke to other agents who I think it's the setup of the tenancy they find it a challenge to do that. But as I say, if it's done right, and the people who do that day in, day out, I'll have that. Do you know that the art of doing that can finely tuned, and it can be quite a lucrative investment if done properly.
Yeah, we've seen people that have made them quite successful, obviously, providing they do them right. But yeah, I think you'd probably have to do it with bills included, because I can imagine that would get very messy if you...
Oh yeah, that would just
have it that way.
We know what dealing with utilities is like, just for individual, long-term residentials or medium to long-term residentials, and that changeover period, making sure that the meters have been checked, utilities companies have been notified, and the tenants doing their side, we're doing our side as a managed nation. And if somebody just doesn't, I'm not going to bother taking the meter readings or notifying the utility company, it could get very time consuming.
Especially if you've got multiple people there as well. I mean, as you say, it's a hassle enough when it's just families or individuals that are in it. But oh gosh, if you've got multiple people that are in that situation, I imagine it would be very complex, we'll say.
Yeah. So as I say, I was talking here in Fife. I was referring to St Andrews a lot there about HMOs, because that's where most of our students are. They are dotted around, obviously in other areas of Fife, but predominantly when you think of Fife, you think of St Andrews and you think of students, because of the university and things as well. That's where predominantly a lot of our HMOs are and things as well. But that brings me on to the topic of students. And I was going to say, Kerin, you could kind of run through the student rentals and how to attract them and what's the benefits as well.
Yeah, so successful student rentals are about a balance of meeting the HMO legal requirements and catering to the realities of modern university-style life.
Mm-hmm.
So unlike other types of tenants we've covered, student rentals are usually furnished with a bed, wardrobe, desk, chair, expected in bedrooms, plus living and dining room furniture. So they are looking for all the main larger, especially items of furniture. If you do have something fully furnished, that is realistically what's going to attract them. That can be, again, in itself quite a headache. If you have the more furniture, the more things can go wrong. But at least they will be looking for at least like those main items of furniture for it. Now, focusing on durable and replaceable fittings is very wise during this, if this is the demographic that you're going for. You don't need designer luxury, but do choose a fresh, simple style with easy care items that comply with fire regulations. Now, that is an important one. If you're going for down the furnished route, you do still have to have your fire safe labels on the items of furniture. So make sure they don't get pulled off. As tempting as it can be, leave the labels on.
Yeah, not just HMOs or student rentals and things, any rental that's got furnishings in it. And we've seen people before, like, I'll just leave the sofa and things. It's like, well, as the fire ticket on it. If not, it will need to come out.
Yeah. Students look for homes close on their campus, preferably within walking distance or a manageable cycle ride. Again, a lot of students don't have cars. They're still dependent very much on public transport. So making sure that you've got something, if that is what you're looking for, within easy access to, for example, the universities, the colleges, and easy commuting.
Yeah.
Given their low income, you'll need a guarantor for each student on the tenancy agreement. Now, this is usually a parent, which does mean that you're going to have to go through extra referencing checks, extra credit checks, making sure that both the student themselves and the guarantor are both going to be credibly viable to be putting on a tenancy agreement.
Yeah.
All-inclusive tenancies that include the cost of gas, electric, water, broadband and council tax are much preferred for students to budget more easily and for a continuous service. Again, if you've got a few people in the property or even just students that are maybe going into their first property, it can be a bit overwhelming for them trying to sort all these things out. So if you're doing it bills included, it can be a lot more attractive for them.
Yeah. I mean, generally, I think I could think of one or two. I don't think we've got any like that just now. I could think of one or two over the years that we've done that, where they've included the bills or the council tax and whatever. But generally, I think usually do it. I mean, we've got a couple that are not HMOs, but we've got two separate students on the same lease that are sharing, but they also, I mean, the rent's not as high. It's not like set as an HMO individual room rate. It's set as a normal rate, and they just split it for like the 2-bedroom property of what they're in, and then they take care of the council tax and utilities separately as well. But we have had it in the past where the owner or the landlord decides to just include it, and I suppose it does make it easier.
Yeah, it can be. Obviously, council tax is not so bad because obviously you know what you're going to be paying for that each month. But I think gas and electric, especially again post-COVID, everything hiked up. So you don't really want to say, oh yeah, the gas and electric's included and they've got the lights on 24/7 and the heating's blasting all the time, and then you're incurring a big cost for it. So again, it's taking that into consideration as well as to how much extra you want to charge that's going to make it suitable to include the bills if you are doing that.
Yeah, it made it quite difficult for us as well when utility prices and everything really hiked up. And it's quite hard because it's a question that we do get asked quite often, like how much does it cost to run the heating? And, what's the utility bills like? And, we used to you could usually more or less generalize, like, oh, it'll be roughly about this. But then you don't want to be held to it now because, things can escalate and it depends on your usage. It can be quite costly, or if you are quite conscious of what you use in terms of, are you running the heating quite a lot? Do you leave all the lights on? Do you have a lot of electrical appliances that you run? Where before it didn't have as much an impact as it does now, because obviously the cost of utilities has went up.
Yeah. So and again, when it comes to it, when a tenant asks like, oh, how much is it going to be for the gas and electric? The honest answer is you don't know.
Yeah,
so I always advise them yeah, exactly. I always advise them it'll depend on how much they use, and the best thing to do is shop about as well. Obviously, if there's been a previous tenant and they could be with a different supplier, it's good to run it through comparison websites and see who can give you the best deal for the gas and electric for the property. So, and again, even if you're a landlord as well, if you've maybe got that void period coming up and you're wanting to do some work to it, shop about and see what utility supplier, because you are going to be responsible for the utilities during that time. See who can give you the best deal for it, even if it is just for a month or a few weeks or so.
Yeah, and there is, we've kind of come out the other side of it, and the utility companies now, there's a few that have got some good fixed term deals, so can that give you a wee bit more certainty in what you're going to be paying rather than, having that, the variable at the end of each month.
Yeah. So obviously reflecting back on the students in a nutshell, renting students means thinking about young people who are living away from home for the first time without much or any experience running a household. So again, when you're doing that move in, it's going to be key to kind of baby them through it and just make sure that they know how to work everything in the property. It'll eliminate teething issues such as them phoning up that their boiler's not working. Did you show them how to top up the pressure on it? Or their smoke alarms beeping, do they know how to change the battery in it, or do they know they need to change the battery in it? So just making sure that if you do have people that are renting for the first time in general, students, adults, that they're showing all these things and how to do it, because as I say, it will eliminate some of the teething issues that you could come through in the tenancy.
Yeah, definitely. So they're all good points, I think, on each different kind of tenant profile. If you are a landlord and you would really like, some more help on how to explore what types of properties go with what types of tenants, and what's the best target audience and where would I be best to look to invest in things, you're always welcome to reach out to us and look for some advice in turning your rental property and that really into that real magnet for the right tenant. And as I say, if you're building a buy-to-let portfolio, possibly you might think, right, okay, well, I want to target family units. You're going to really need to start possibly two, more likely 3 and 4 bedroom properties in good residential areas that's going to be close to schools and transport links and amenities and things. So, and if you're not familiar with an area but you're investing in it, then definitely speak to your local agent. If it's here in Fife, feel free to speak to us. Or if you want us to, elaborate a little bit more on anything that we spoke about this morning, I did put all the links in there for the HMOs, for the families, and for the sharers and things as well. So you could click through on them and get a lot more information, but always welcome to jump in the comments. You could message us direct. I've also put my email address on the attached as well. It's richard.cook@fifeproperties.co.uk, and you could reach out to me directly, or you could direct any questions for Kerin as well, and we would be happy to answer. So thanks for that, Kerin. That was really good to run through. And it just shows the benefits of actually having the knowledge of an area and who's going to be your target audience for certain properties and things.
Yeah, definitely. When you're looking to purchase a property, think about kind of what type of tenant that you would like to attract.
Yeah, because it's not, I mean, you can't, it's not just, oh, I'll buy this property here and I'll spend X amount on it and I'll put this high rent on it and just expect people to come. Do you know, think about the property, think about your budget to turn it around, but what's within your budget? Are you changing things in it to suit certain demographics of tenants? You know, is it for students? Is it for a family? And there'll be different things that you would purchase and different things that you would upgrade to suit their needs, because it will reflect on them wanting to actually rent the property and ultimately for as long a period of time as possible to be a viable investment. So yeah, a lot to think about. So
yeah.
Great, we'll leave it there this morning. As I say, feel free to come back to us with any questions and click through on the links provided for any further information. And until next time, we will see you then. Thanks for that, Kerin.
No problem. See you later.
Bye.